Hello everybody, let's work through the uh, project example for the first week of class and project 1. This is the most important part of the module 1, week 1. Creating a class to calculate the body mass index. For each project that is assigned in the class, I try to give you an example that is very close to what you have to do in the project so that you can use that as a model for what you need to do in the programming project. So you should have worked through everything that is above this particular folder in Module 1. That means everything up to this particular folder in Module 1, working from top to bottom. So let's click into the folder for creating a class to calculate the body mass of an individual. So here's the code to calculate a body mass index to create a class that actually can be used to create a object with the body mass index for someone. So this particular class imports the sys library so that we can do sys.exit, as was talked about in the object mutator example with try and except and else. So we've imported the sys library. Here's the start of the class definition for a BMI class. Now, object-oriented programming has a lot of advantages, but one of them is not the amount of code. It takes a lot of code to do object-oriented programming. The programs get long. So let's just see how long this is. I'm highlighting code till I get to the end of the class for BMI. See how much code I have highlighted here? So we have a lot of advantages, but the big disadvantage is it takes a lot of code. Now down here at the bottom, we know what this does. This is where we're actually going to create an instance of that BMI class. So let's scroll back up and talk about what's going on here. Here's the constructor for the BMI class. This constructor does not take any arguments in. We know that every method in a class has to receive a reference to self. That's what's happening here with self. Here we're setting up and initializing some private attributes. I know they're private because they have the double underscore in front of them. So we have a private attribute for name, age, weight, and height. Name is going to be a string. You can see we have an empty string there that it's being set to. Age, weight, and height are all integer values. They're being initialized to 0. So when we create an instance of our BMI class, this is basically what is run until somebody calls something else. Okay? So here we're creating a mutator to set the name. Nothing special there. It takes one argument in named name. It takes name and it sets the private attribute for our class, double underscore name, equal to that. Now this should look familiar. The example that we had earlier with try and except and else, this is actually copied from that. Nothing's changed. We have a mutator method called setAge. It's taken one argument in, and it's handling the situation. If it can't convert that argument into an integer, then an exception is raised, and we pass whatever error happened out to sys.exit where they can see it. And at that point, the program is over. Here's another mutator to do pretty much the same thing with weight, except we've got some different criteria. Weight still has to be an integer, but weight can't be less than 10, and it can't be greater than 500. If that happens, we raise a programmer-defined exception. So you can see we have weight, mutator for weight, we have a mutator for age, and we have a mutator for height. Nothing special there. Keep in mind, when you get to the project that you're assigned this week to create a class definition for a date class, you will have to do something similar with month, day, and year, and there'll be criteria for month, day, and year. Like, for instance, month has to be greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 12. So there will be some validation that needs to happen with month, day, and year. So and it would be month greater than or equal to 1 and month less than or equal to 12. So there'll be day validation. There may be some year validation. I can't remember. Okay, so here's the accessor to get the BMI. So this is going to do some calculations, and it's going to use those private attributes to do the calculations. You can see the private attributes here. Does anybody remember what this does? The backslash on the end of that line? It actually lets me wrap this line so that it doesn't like go off the right hand side of the page, because this is a fairly long calculation. So this just lets me wrap this code right here that would normally be up here down, and we've wrapped it twice, haven't we? So you see there are 2 backslashes. So all this is one calculation, and then it rounds it and returns it. Here's another accessor. This accessor calls the get BMI accessor. So it does that, and then it makes a determination as to whether you're underweight, normal, overweight, or obese. Here's some other accessors to get the name, get the age, get the weight, and height, and so on. Nothing special there. And finally, we're down here to where once we've got this class definition created, we can actually create an instance of the class. And here we're creating an instance of the BMI class and naming it Ken. So when we call this, nothing happens except the constructor runs, everything gets initialized to 0. Here's where we're calling a mutator to set the name. Here's where we're calling a mutator to set the age, to set the weight, and to set the height. Now once we've got those things set, then we can get the status to find out whether this particular instance of a BMI class named Ken is overweight, underweight, or obese, and so on. So let's switch over to Tawny and look at this code. Okay, here we are in Tawny. You can see the code that we were just talking about for the BMI class. Down here at the bottom, you can see that it's doing a dir This is going to show us everything that's in that object that we just created up here. Okay, so this dir command will show us that. This will let us get the status. This will let us get the BMI number, and this just shows that you can get to private things that you're not supposed to if you know what you're doing. So let's run it. There it is. There's where we ran it. You can see this is the output of the dir. This is output of the dir right here. Okay, that's what printed this. You can see all the attributes in the class. Here's where we're getting the status, and you can see it prints out normal. Here's where we're getting the actual BMI number or index, and that's 23.5. And here's where we got to some private data that we weren't supposed to. Okay, so work through this. Use this as a pattern for your Project 1. It'll be really, really important to get Project 1 done this week, because next week, the second week of class, you will be faced with doing the exam program, the exam project, and the exam. And even more important than that is that your exam program will need to import your Project 1. So if you don't do Project 1, you won't be able to do the exam. You heard that right. If you don't do Project 1, you will not be able to do the exam, because the exam will actually inherit the class that you create this week. So good luck. If you need help, remember, you can get in touch with me. You can stop by. If enough people email, I will have a help session the first week of class. I haven't done that before, but that's an option for you if you need it. I generally don't start doing help sessions until about week 2 or 3 usually. But if you need it before then, let me know. Thanks and good luck.